In this episode of Kill Team for Beginners, I'm going to be giving you a brief rundown of every single faction. If you've never played Warhammer before and don't really know what your options are, this is the video for you. Use this video to get a general flavour for each faction and hopefully pick one you like the look of the most. In the next video, I'm going to be doing a 2-box buyer's guide for every single faction to not only get you started, but also to get you a list that can hold its own against pretty much anything. But now, the faction overview. Adeptus Astartes. The poster boys of 40k, these are the first port of call for almost every new player. They are the Emperor's finest, genetically enhanced battle monks that are more alien than human, yet they protect humanity from the Chaos and Xenos ties. This is a huge faction that can do a little bit of everything. Primarily, they are a shooting faction with amazing and accurate weapons at their disposal. Scout gunners are a staple in most lists, tactical marines are durable and flexible, veterans are a brilliant choice, and all of the Primaris units can do anything you want them to do, including devastating close combat attacks. Adeptus Mechanicus. Lesser known than the Astartes, but this is the faction that makes the entire Imperium of Man run. They are the cogs in the machine, the oil in the gears, and the plasma caliver in the face. Without these menial religious workers that don't complain when tasked with hands inscribing 1,000,000 bullets, the entire empire would fall in a matter of months. A ranged faction with some interesting melee harassment units. Never leave home without 2 plasma calivers backed up by 2 auspices. Their priests bring a bit of durability to the field with double saves, and the entire faction has the unique ability called Canticles of the Omnissiah, providing a different buff to all of your models every turn, allowing you to focus on hiding turn 1, shooting turn 2, melee combat turn 3, or anything in between. Adepta Soriritas. Forget the Imperium of Man, this is the Imperium of Woman. These are battle nuns. Self-hating battle nuns. In fact, the only thing they hate more than themselves are heretics, but they've got flamers for that. Against low toughness armies, the Sisters of Battle can be absolutely devastating by mass taking their regular Sisters of Battle. Durable thanks to their power armor, and there's always a time and place for bolter fire. The real standout units in this faction have to be the Arco-Flagellants, doing a crazy 2d3 attacks and having 2 wounds with a feel no pain save. Every one of them a deadly model if you can get them into melee. Astra Militarum. If the Space Marines are the Imperium's finest genetically mutated monsters, then the Imperial Guard are the ones that don't terrify the population when they rescue a planet from aliens. They are you and I. Regular men and women that go through basic training before being thrown into the biggest meat grinder the Imperium has to offer. Their average life expectancy after touchdown in a new planet is 15 hours, and that's also how long their shooting phase takes. An amazing faction both in terms of hobby and gameplay. Load up with plasmas or flamers, chuck in all the named characters you can, and you have a force that is fragile but still able to beat any other faction in the game. Asuryani. They're not just elves in space, or at least not since the lawsuit. They are the Craft World Eldar, the Asuryani. Older than humanity, they are the adults of the 40k universe. They've had their wild phase and come through the other side as the Warhammer equivalent of born-again Christians, as they now devote their life to a singular cause in an attempt to remove thoughts of sin. I probably should have made them sound cooler, that's my bad. They're literally just space elves. I mean, what more do you need to know? An amazingly flexible army with tools to handle every single situation. Their aspect warriors get all the heavy lifting done, but they manage to truly dominate the game by being the fastest. Custodes. Remember how the Space Marines are the Emperor's finest? Then, in another way, it was the Imperial Guard? Well, it's kind of the Custodes as well. They are superior to a Space Marine in every possible way, and the only reason they aren't the dominant force in the galaxy is because they were pretty bummed out when the Emperor died, but also didn't die. Have you ever wanted to play a faction that is incredibly resilient and incredibly killy? Then these are the guys for you. Their big bonus is you'll only ever have to paint 3 of them. It's a win for everyone involved, except your opponent, of course. Demons. They are literally the devil. They come from the warp, which is hell, and they are human vices given physical form. Possibly the best faction in the game when it comes to holding an objective, then they have psychic attacks and bloodletters to get any killing they need done. Just make sure you can roll a 5-up invulnerable save. Death Guard. They are the unstoppable force of the Chaos faction. Any wounds they take are instantly healed by an overflowing of pus and excrement. If you need a position held, these are the guys to do it. Also, they stink. Really bad. The most durable army in the game that has multiple ways to run the list. Poxwalkers are amazing cheap objective holders, and Plague Marines have an array of brilliant special weapons that make chewing through any other faction a breeze. Deathwatch. You know how the Space Marines are the best of the best? Well, the Deathwatch are the best of the best of the best, sir, and yes, that was a Men in Black reference for the Space Marines that are all in black. Take the best fighters from every Space Marine chapter, second them to an elite chapter that is dedicated exclusively to hunting down the Xenos alien threat at the behest of the Inquisition, and you've got the Deathwatch. Canonically, the most customizable Marines in 40k. Amazing weapon options, powerful shooting combos, and Marine level saves. These guys can be run as a few decked out guys, every single model able to shoot and melee with the best in the game, or you can pare them down to have each model fill a specific role. Your enemy will learn to fear your name because for all the options you have, the only real question is, how many frag cannons should I take? Drukhari. Space elves with a serious BDSM hobby. They revel in pain, and you could even say they get power from it. They live in purgatory, the place between hell and the real world, and make their living by going on real space raids to bring back enough slaves to continue their extreme body modification hobbies in the biblically named Cumorah. The faction that has, quite possibly, the most list building choices in the game. They can be run so many different ways, but the default build has to go to Rax and their sub-faction, giving them a 4-up invulnerable save. Very hard to shift, and both Mandrakes and Incubi can be used to extreme effect. Elucidian Starstriders. The official rogue trader faction. When you play the Elucidian Starstriders, you're playing a group of named characters, each one with their own backstory and only available in the Rogue Trader expansion. Each character has a role, and once you figure out what they're supposed to be doing, this can be a faction with real teeth. Most armies are won and lost in the roster building stage, but these guys are won and lost in the actual gameplay. If you're good, they're good. Gellerpox Infected. If Nurgle had to stow aboard an Imperial ship and slowly contaminate the crew, the pus-laden afterbirth would be called the Gellerpox Infected. Your guys are small, weak, die easily, and don't kill anything. But that's fine, because no one's shooting at them. They're shooting at some of the biggest models in the game, the Nightmare Hulks. They're durable, and whatever they get into melee with dies, but mainly they're there to distract the enemy from the rest of your team, who are doing the real work of winning the game. Besides, who needs a shooting phase anyway? Genestealer Cults. Imagine the Imperial Guard, but instead of loyalty to the Emperor, they've got delusional belief in an alien entity. Essentially the same thing, yeah. They've cast off the shackles of oppression, thrown down their tools of labour, and are going to rise up against the bourgeoisie, aka Imperials, and all done without even knowing that they're going to be preparing the planet for biological stripping. Not as hot as it sounds, sadly. With the most powerful weapon in the game at their disposal, the Genestealer Cults are all about melee. Acolytes are your go-to models, and they're cheap enough to flood the board. But if you really need something killed, you've got options in the Aberrant, or better yet, the Acolyte Fighter with Rock Cutter. Just don't die before you get into melee. Grey Knights. Okay, so remember how the Space Marines were the best, then it was the Imperial Guard, then it was the Custodes, then it was the Deathwatch? Well, it's these guys really. Holy warriors with magical powers. If you've ever wanted to import your fantasy world paladin into 40k, it's the Grey Knights. Every model is a powerhouse in both combat and shooting and the elusive psychic phase. When it comes to Grey Knights, you want falchions on everyone apart from your combat, who should probably have a demon hammer. Your faction is active in every phase of the game, and the only real decision here is which heavy weapon you want to take. the Silencer, or the Incinerator. Now, Harlequins are yet more space elves that are, let's be clear, legally distinct from Tolkien's work, or so Games Workshop's IP lawyers assure them. This particular flavour of Harlequin, however, is Murder Clown. They worship the god of laughter. No, it doesn't make sense. Now, these are one of the few true one-box kill teams. The Harlequin's Kiss is your best combat weapon, and the Neurodisruptor pistol is deceptively useful. But if you can figure out how to make a fusion pistol work, you will wreck face. Heretic Astartes. Remember the Space Marines? Well, these are them, but worse. I mean, but bad. Evil. Not good. Take holy warrior monks and have them corrupted by a chaos god or disillusioned with the imperial lie. They can be true freedom fighters that want a better life for humanity, or they can be psycho nutjobs with rocket-propelled machine guns. Your choice. You replace the 1,000 different loadouts of the Adeptus Astartes with a few less options, but in their place you get cheap bodies in the form of cultists. Also, everyone will fear your berserkers. Let them take the fire while your gunners get the kills and your cultists camp objectives. Kroot. The only truly fleshed out race of cannibalistic mercenary birdmen. Lethal predators who consume their enemies to absorb their strength, and a very unique culture that was fully embraced into Tau society, yet they are still canonically, even if not in gameplay, a mercenary faction that will sell their services to anyone. These guys have two things going for them. Numbers and Krootox, and oh man, are Krootox fun to get on the battlefield. Stick to cover and sit on points. That's your game plan with Kroot, and who knows, it might even work if your opponent rolls poorly. Necrons. Tomb Kings in space. Have you ever wanted to play a race of egotistical maniacs that are delusional enough to believe they can take the galaxy back from the Imperium? Well, Necrons aren't for you because they're not delusional, they can actually do it. Thanks to their fluff, they can be anything from murderous, crazed savages all the way down to peace-loving hippies, and it will make sense as every Necron follows their overlord's bidding. Also, their technology is full-on space magic. They can do literally anything. They are genuinely the most powerful faction in the lore. It's nuts, honestly. Most powerful faction in the lore, and they're not far off it on the tabletop. Flayed Ones will be your saviour, as with the right build, you can have enough attacks on the board to statistically break through Terminator armour, even when you don't have any AP on your weapons. Lychguard, of course, will devastate any enemy if you can close the distance, and the combination of the two will bring even a top player to their knees. Orks. A race of psychically linked green gorilla mushrooms. Even a regular orc is able to have limbs chopped off and not only keep fighting, but regrow the limb. Every single race in the galaxy has to know how to deal with orcs because they are everywhere. And why are they everywhere? Because they're here to have a good time, and what they really love is fighting. Also, canonically, they're absolutely terrifying to face as they bring a raw animal fury to everything they do. Boys. Take all the regular boys you can. Bizarrely, orcs have become a shooting team, and they're shockingly good at it. They're also really good at melee. They're just good. And always, always, take a grot leader. Servants of the Abyss. If Heretic Astartes weren't chaos enough for you, then these guys are chaos that were locked away in a Blackstone fortress for a few centuries, allowing the cultists to develop psychic powers and the Chaos Space Marines to complain a lot about why they didn't as well. Max out on Negavolt cultists and beastmen, then chuck in a psyker, and you have a devastating melee and psychic team. As per usual, cultists sit on objectives. With a catchphrase like, for the greater good, the Tau wear their intentions on their sleeve. They just want everyone to work together, and if they have to kill a few people to make that happen, then they're willing to make that sacrifice for us. 3 railguns and a recon drone are your go-to units with the Tau, but after that, you can build them out however you want, but you can never go wrong by simply taking more drones. 1,000 Suns. An army of walking automatons led by a powerful sorcerer. Am I talking about Necrons? Well, no, because these guys have fallen to chaos and become hideous shadows of their former selves. They are the ultimate keepers of knowledge and finders of secrets, and they're doing it all to try and help their fellow brothers. One of the few armies that can play in every phase of the game thanks to their sorcerer. Rubric Marines with special weapons are a question your opponent needs to have a specific answer for, and chances are, whatever answer they came up with, it won't work against your Zangors. Tyranids. A giant hive mind from sci-fi stories of old, they are here to consume the galaxy and strip it of all biomass. They are also the only faction where you can roleplay as the squad leader because they're led by a giant psychic entity known as the hive mind, so quite why you wouldn't do that, I don't know. One of the most flexible factions in the game, they have viable builds across every style of gameplay, whether you like big bugs, little bugs, shooting or melee. Warriors are normally the key to victory.